Good evening. Thank you for joining us. Today is Wednesday, July 15th, and this is the regular Kingsburg City Council. So tonight, the invocation is going to be given by Pastor Faith Escobedo from Rick Alonzo Ministries, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'll all stand and remove your hats.
Dear God, thank you so much for this day. Thank you for every single person that's gathered here today, for our council members, our city officials, our police department and fire department, and just every person who is here that cares about Kingsburg. God, I just pray for wisdom and discernment for every person involved here. I pray for open hearts and listening ears. And I just ask, God, that you be with every single person here to make the best decisions for this city, God. We love you. We thank you. We praise you. It is in your name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Can we get a roll call?
Councilmember Sullivan.
Present.
Councilmember Cullimer.
Here.
Councilmember North. Here. Councilmember Purcell.
Here.
Mayor Smith.
Here. So our first item on the agenda is to approve the agenda. Can I get a motion?
Motion. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Under presentations, we have none. So I will move on to public comment. This is a time that provides an opportunity for members of the public to address the city council on items of interest to the public within the council's jurisdiction, which are not already on the agenda. It is the policy of the council not to answer questions impromptu. Speakers should limit their comments to not more than 3 minutes. For items which are on the agenda this evening, members of the public will be provided an opportunity to address the council as each item is brought up for discussion. Is there anyone who would like to provide public comment tonight?
I would.
Please state your name.
Boyce Silva, Kingsburg, California. I'd like to know why the public was not made aware of the $5 million purchase down the street for the new city council building. It was not widely known. Everybody I've talked to in town didn't even know about it. I know you put it on your agenda last meeting in a subtle way, but why was there no public announcement? I mean, everybody knows the Crawfish Festival's coming. The city's made that aware. Why couldn't they make that aware?
Okay.
No answers?
We are not allowed to engage during public
Aren't you,
comment.
are you not our representatives? Can we not ask you questions? You're elected representatives. You're supposed to serve the people of this community. This whole asinine thing that you cannot answer questions is stupid. It's like putting you up here somewhere. You're not up here. We're here. You're down here. You're supposed to answer our questions. I mean, you guys spent a lot of time telling us how we had to pass Measure E because the city couldn't afford to fund the fire department, the police department. And then you turn around and put us in debt for a new building that you don't need. It'd be like me if I asked somebody, say, you know what? I really need help on my mortgage payment. And I got somebody to agree to that. And they signed on, they're gonna help me with my mortgage pay for the next 5 years. And then within weeks after they agreed, I tell them, you know what? I'm putting a pool in. So I didn't really need the money. It just freed up other money to do frivolous things. Does anybody have an?
I will turn this over to staff because no, we are not allowed to be speaking about something that is not on the agenda, and this is not on the agenda tonight. So no, we are precluded from discussing this.
Why?
Again, I'm going to have
Explain
to
that.
turn it to the attorney.
Explain that why
If I could.
an elected representative, a servant of this community, cannot answer a question from somebody from the community.
The Brown Act specifically provides that in order for the council to engage in discussions of this nature, that matter has to be on the agenda so that everybody knows in the community that they're going to talk about the purchase of the building or whatever the case may be. And so to give everybody the opportunity to come and to listen and to speak on that. And
Okay,
that's
so
the reason, that's the reason why.
Okay, you're the attorney.
Yes.
So is the city not required to make some public announcement that they intend to spend $4.5 million of taxpayer money to buy a building? We did.
It was on the agenda.
It was on the agenda in a little sport. It should have been announced before that.
The entering into a contract of that nature does not require the city to hold a public hearing on it before the city council makes a determination whether or not to proceed with the terms and conditions of the contract. And so the law does not require us to do that. They require us to put it on the agenda so that anybody who sees the agenda and has a question can come to the city council meeting that evening and speak on that issue.
Well, I agree. If it was on the agenda saying, hey, the city council wants to move forth with a $4.5 million expenditure to buy a building down the street, I'd agree with you. But instead, it's very vague. And
No,
I didn't even know you could click on it to expand it.
yeah,
There's no explanation about that. Because believe me, I would have been here 2 weeks ago or whatever the hell that last meeting was.
the agenda was clear and it identified the recommended
It was
action.
vague.
No, it wasn't vague.
It
'cause
was vague.
It talked about the purchase and sale. It talked about the purchase and sale of real property, and the purchase agreement was attached as an exhibit to that agenda item.
Yeah, but there was no link. It wasn't like a highlighted link where you would know to click on it to expand it. You have to know that you can click on it and expand it.
Well, if you had looked at the agenda and you had a question about it and you couldn't click, then you could have called the city clerk and asked her for the printed agenda and the
But
printed
why do I have to
document.
go through all these hoops for them to spend $4.5 million, what's gonna be over $5 million by the time it's all done, between interest and upgrades to the building? Why do I have to go through all these hoops to find out how my money and the whole city's money is being spent?
It's not an issue of going through hoops. It's an issue of looking at the agenda. And if you need information or an explanation as to what's on the agenda, to contact city staff before the meeting, ask them to talk with you about it, and also ask them for a copy of the documentation that relates to the agenda item. That's all you need to do.
Okay.
Okay.
See, nothing's changed in this town. Everything is done under the radar. I mean, you beg for money from Measure E, but you have money to buy a building. You should have put that in the thing. It's like, you know what? If you pass Measure E, we'll be able to get a new city hall down the road.
I appreciate feedback. Sorry, we appreciate your feedback. There is a way of being notified when an agenda is being made public. Abby has a list.
I
We
read
do
the
the best-
agendas, but
We do the best to get our information out. But public comment is limited to 3 minutes, so I need to move on and see if anybody else has public comment tonight.
you got it.
Thank you.
I'll be on city council next year.
Is there anyone else here that would like to speak in public comment? Just please state your name.
Good evening, Mayor Smith, members of City Council, members of City Administration. My name is Dr. Emer O'Brien, and this is my second time here. It's great to be back in Kingsburg. You have a wonderful city. I am here to officially let you know that I am in the runoff to be for the general election in November for the Fresno County Superintendent of Schools position. You may recognize my name. I was the superintendent of Clovis Unified for 6 years. And just last year, I was the interim superintendent in Central Unified. I have over 40 years of experience, 20 years actually as a teacher in the classroom. They were my favorite 20 years. 10 of them were in Ireland, where I'm originally from, not too far from Sweden, actually. And the next 10 were in Fresno, here in Fresno County. I spent the last 20 years being an elementary principal, high school principal, and rising in various positions, assistant superintendent to superintendent of Clovis Unified. The main role of the county superintendent is to support the 31 district superintendents around our county. And I'm just going to say it as it is. We have a lot of issues in education right now. I have maintained that we have a literacy crisis. You can be the judge if you have, 55% of our kids in K-12 education are not able to read on standard. To me, that's a big crisis. It affects everything, including, as you all know, the economic success of our community. The reality is that we know how to fix this. In a nutshell, we have not been approaching the teaching of reading in a way that has been proven to be successful in other areas. We know how to approach it. We know there's a new law in the books in California that has actually put hundreds of millions of dollars in the budget to help us move to what's called the science of reading, which is essentially the old phonics method that we're all probably familiar with. And right now, my concern is that there's no momentum at the Fresno County Office of Education around this. In fact, the leadership there feels that there isn't a crisis. And so I have, want to come out of retirement because my heart honestly feels for all the kids in our county that are not getting a fair break because of our system. And I want to change the system in a good way by supporting our district superintendents and supporting them moving towards a better early literacy foundation for our kids. I have some flyers, which I'll give Abigail. And is Abigail the clerk? Oh, sorry, the clerk. And I thank you for your time, and I ask you to give it serious consideration. I know there are a lot of things on the ballot in November. To me, the education of our kids is the most important issue. So you can reach out to me at any time as well. Thank you. I have plenty of flyers here.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Okay. Sorry. Yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't know if this was the right time to make the comment opposing the backyard chickens. No.
You will have an opportunity when we're speaking on that one on the agenda item. Okay. If there's no one else here, is there anyone virtually who would like to provide public comment? If so, please raise your hand. If you are on the phone, press *9. Okay. So seeing none, I will move on to the consent calendar. Items on the consent calendar are considered routine and include a recommended action from staff and shall be acted on in one motion of the council. If a council member requests additional information or would like to pull an item for discussion, that item shall be pulled from the consent calendar and acted upon separately. A motion to approve the consent calendar is deemed to include a motion to waive the full reading of any ordinance or resolution on the consent calendar. Would any council member like to pull an item to be discussed? No. Would any staff or member from the public like to pull an item to be discussed? Anyone virtually? No. Okay. Seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So moving on to our regular calendar, the first item is a public hearing. And the presentation will be given by Community Development Director Holly Hohen. At this time, I will open the public hearing.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, and community members. Holly Owen, Community Development Director for the city. You have before you as an agenda item the adoption of the City of Kingsburg Objective Standards. Under your executive summary, in 2017, the governor signed SB 35, which was a streamlined approval process bill, which provided for a by right streamlined approval process for multi-unit housing projects of 2 or more residential units, subject to certain conditions. They needed to have a minimum of 10% of the total number of units be deemed affordable housing. And if they went through the streamlined approval process, bill, the project would be approved. While cities are required to consider any application for streamlining that follows the requirements, cities and counties can apply certain design standards to any project that requests streamlining for review. These would be deemed objective in nature, measurable, quantifiable, and not involving personal judgment. This has led to a number of cities adopting objective standards to apply to these specific projects, because without objective standards, a project meeting the streamlined requirements would be automatically approved. In short, a city can have local control over design for this type of housing only if it has adopted a set of objective standards. And this is what you have in front of you tonight for consideration. In planning and development, there's an important distinction between development standards and design standards. Development standards are usually in the municipal code, the downtown form-based code, and these will not be changed at this time and are not part of this legislative requirements. Those include lot coverage, minimum setbacks, things that are very objective because they establish standards that are verifiable by reference. Typically, design standards incorporate objective language in the form of mandates and have little room for interpretation, whereas design guidelines are often subjective and make design recommendations. Where the word shall or must is used, it's intended to be a mandate. Where the word should or encouraged is used, it's intended to be a recommended guideline. But what's before you tonight are objective standards, not objective guidelines. The North Kingsburg specific plan is a good example that we have that has a combination of design standards and guidelines using both styles of language. I initiated the process of consideration of certain objective standards with the Planning Commission. We discussed it in October of 2025, April 2026, with a resulting recommendation for adoption at their May 14th, 2026 meeting. These objective standards were created with assistance from a Fresno Council of Governments Circuit Planning Program. It was a draft standards for Kingsburg and created to review and potentially adopt to apply to these streamlined by right affordable multifamily housing projects. At your May 6th meeting, you considered the objective standard, the proposed standards, and recommended that the Planning Commission review and adopt those. These objective standards were adopted at Planning Commission's May 14th meeting, and these draft standards for your review are attached as Exhibit A. The recommended action tonight by City Council is to determine the adoption of multifamily objective standards and that it's exempt from CEQA and covered by a common sense exception because it can be seen with certainty that there's no possibility that the adoption of these standards may have a significant effect on the environment. And number 2, adopt resolution 2026-027 that adopts the proposed objective design standards for multifamily affordable residential projects, which are streamlined by the following bills: SB 35, 423, AB 2011, and SB 6. This concludes my staff report. This is not something that's new. I think for you, it's certainly not new for Planning Commission, but I'm available to answer any questions that you may have about this. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is there any council discussion or questions?
I just have one. Ms. Owens, I just have one. So Planning Commission on May 14th supports this, position, right?
Yes,
The adoption of this. Was
indeed.
that a unanimous decision or was there dissension?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, unanimous. Okay, that's all I had.
Vince remembers.
Yeah, I was.
Okay, Vince was there.
I was there.
Yeah,
Okay.
very good. Thank you.
Okay, I do have a couple of questions. Okay. Are there, so in the downtown corridor, we have some requirements. So do these standards, will they coincide, will the downtown, if, for example, the complex we have here met the downtown standards, will that still be in effect? You know, if there is another multifamily development like this downtown?
The form-based code is the guiding document for development downtown. This only applies to an affordable housing project, multifamily. The rest of if it's a market rate multifamily project, all our applicable existing design standards would apply.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yes. Yes. Okay. Okay. Very good. Let's see. Is there any public comment on this item? Okay, is there? I can't. Okay, I'm going to close public comment. And since there are no
No,
additional.
yeah, I have a
okay.
comment. I just want to say, I want to thank Holly for her hard work on this. Objective, we really need this resolution just in case it ever does happen here in the near future or, years from now, that since the governor signed that SB 35, to streamline the process for by right multifamily, if we don't have this resolution, they can just build it however they want. And there's no standards. So by passing this, we have our standards, how they have to build it. So thank you on all the hard work on that, Holly. Yeah.
Good.
I had a question. Do I need to get
Oh,
up there?
mhm. Yes, and if you could state your name.
My name is John Smith, and I remember when some of this came out, I'm addressed to you, this SB one, whatever it is. It also had a prevailing wage thing to it, which scares off most private contractors. They don't want to pay $80, $90, $100
Right.
for
That's
framing and beyond that for special trades. Is Kingsburg trying to get into business of making housing itself?
No.
Are you going to be the general contractor on this?
No, sir. However, there is, and in that bill, there is a section of it that requires the prevailing wage be paid for these specific projects.
Yeah.
And these specific projects would come to Kingsburg conceptually through a developer.
I have to say, I'm not buying that the developer's going to do that. I think it's been real, I don't think they've been used quite a bit
I'm sure it's
because
just,
of that.
I'm sure it's just a matter of economics as it often is in business. So.
I mean, I don't think anything north side is using prevailing wages in with private people. So that's kind of scary, actually, when they shove that down everybody's throats. And that's, adds cost to the housing. It's one thing if California government requires solar, but prevailing wage, it's quite a bit. I mean, you see what in some of your building roads and what have you, the Berry project on Rayford, it's all prevailing. We understand that, but private housing, maybe not. So, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, I'm going to close the public hearing. And okay. The possible action in front of us is to, one, determine the adoption of the multifamily objective standards is exempt from CEQA and is covered by the common sense exception provided in section 15061B3 of the CEQA guidelines, because it can be seen with certainty that there is no possibility that an adoption of the objective standards may have a significant effect on the environment. And two, can I do them together? Two separate ones. Okay, that's the motion.
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now, the second action in front of us is to adopt Resolution 2026-027 that adopts the proposed objective design standards for multifamily affordable residential projects, which are streamlined per SB 35, SB 423, SB 2011, and SB 6. Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to our next item is another public hearing, amending action section 17-16040 of the Kingsburg Municipal Code to add cemeteries and related uses as conditional uses in the Resource Conservation and Open Space Zoning District, with this presentation by Community Development Director Holly Owen.
Good evening,
And
May. Sorry.
I'm gonna open, at this time, I will open the public hearing.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, and community members. Holly Owen, Community Development Director. What you have for you tonight is an ordinance amendment, 2026-02, amending section 17-16040 of the Kingsburg Municipal Code to add cemeteries and related uses as conditional uses in the Resource Conservation and Open Space Zoning District. On February 17th of this year, the Kingsburg Cemetery District came to us for a site plan review with city staff. That's fairly common, and we gather around, give them comments. They wish to consider the possibility of a proposed new building and then some lot line adjustments. It has served the community since 1925, and so it's been here a very long time in the same place. As part of the review of where the uses landed in our zoning ordinance, it became apparent that it had been at some point dropped from the uses in the Resource Conservation and Open Space District where it currently resides. This is not an uncommon issue. Over time, the zoning ordinances get reviewed, they get published again, the districts are added and taken away, and at some point, the cemetery use dropped off that list in that particular zone, or in any zone, really, I believe, in the city. So you see as attachment A, there was identified as being in the city in 1891. I found that cute old map, which I liked, and at the bottom corner, there's a place, there's a space that says graveyard. So we knew that it existed at one point in the city. It became apparent that it needed to be put back into the zoning ordinance. However, changing or adding uses to the zoning ordinance is a process. It starts with Planning Commission, and Planning Commission needs to make findings before any uses can be added, changed, subtracted to the zoning ordinance. So in your staff report, you see that findings were made at their May 14th meeting. They received testimony and the staff report, and they concurred that this use should be added to the Resource Conservation and Open Space District. The findings are on page 2 of your staff report. I will briefly go through them. And they are always the same so they are in our municipal code as part of the process. The addition of the use to list of conditional uses will be in accordance with the purposes of the district in which the use is proposed. That the use has the same basic characteristics as the uses permitted in the district. that the use reasonably can be expected to conform with the required conditions for the district, that the use will not be detrimental to public health, safety, or welfare, or adversely affect the character of any district in which it would be located, that the use will not create more vehicular traffic than the volume normally created by the uses permitted in the district, that the use will not create more odor, dirt, noise, smoke, vibration, illumination, glare, unsightliness, or any other objectionable influence than the amount that normally created by any of the other uses permitted in the district, and that the use will not create any greater hazard of fire or explosion than the hazards normally created by any of the uses permitted in the district. That's quite an impressive and a little bit of an intimidating list, but I think we can be reassured that the cemetery uses will not create too many problems in the future. They've been here for a long time, and it's usually a pretty quiet activity. There is a CEQA determination that adding the cemeteries, including burial parks, columbarium, and mausoleums dedicated to the permanent, perpetual interment of human remains and ancillary structures related hereto to the list of conditional uses can be seen with certainty that there's no possibility that this amendment can have a significant effect on the environment. And that is one of your recommendations by City Council, should you choose to take that. And then the second is to, as is common with an ordinance, you waive the first reading and pass to a second reading, amending section 1716.040 of the chapter 17.16 and title 17 of the Kingsburg Municipal Code, adding cemeteries and related uses as conditional uses in the Resource Conservation and Open Space District, with the following recital constituting the first reading of the title of the ordinance. An ordinance of the City of Kingsburg amending section 1716.040 of chapter 1716 of title 17 of the Kingsburg Municipal Code, adding cemeteries and related uses as conditional uses in the Resource Conservation and Open Space Zone District. That concludes my staff report, and I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Is there any council discussion or questions? Okay.
A quick comment, again, just a quick comment again. On that, thanks for the hard work again, Holly, and especially for that map, historical map from 18, was it 91? Yeah.
Yes, I believe so. I want to find even a copy of it for my office, but the one from the printer will have to do for now.
Okay. Yeah, that's all I have.
Okay, I'm going to open this up for public comments. Is there anyone here that would like to speak on this item? Nope. Okay, I am going to close public comment, and if there's no additional comments from council, I will close the public hearing and move on to the action in front of us. And it is, the first item is to find that the amendment to section 1716.040 of the Kingsburg Municipal Code to add cemeteries, including burial parks, columbarium and mausoleums dedicated to the permanent, perpetual internment of human remains and the ancillary structures related thereto to the list of conditional uses in the Resource Conservation and Open Space Districts is covered by the common sense exception provided in section 15061B3 of the CEQA guidelines, because it can be seen with certainty that there is no possibility that this amendment to section 1716.040 may have a significant effect on the environment.
I'll make a motion.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And our second item in front of us is to waive the first reading and pass to a second reading ordinance 2026-02, amending section 1716.040 of chapter 1716 or title 17 of the Kingsburg Municipal Code, adding cemeteries and related uses as conditional uses in the Resource Conservation and Open Space Zoning District, with the following recital constituting the first reading of the title of the ordinance. Quote, an ordinance of the City of Kingsburg amending section 1716.040 of chapter 1716 of title 17 of the Kingsburg Municipal Code, adding cemeteries and related uses as conditional uses in the Resource Conservation and Open Spaces Zone District, unquote. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next item on our agenda is the consideration of ballot measure to renew, enact public safety transaction and use tax, with the presentation by City Manager Alexander Henderson.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. This is a follow-up to discussion we've been having over the last year or so. For some background, on June 5th, 2018, Kingsburg voters approved Measure E, a 1% public safety sales tax with 72% voter support. The measure became effective on October 1, 2018 for a 10-year term as specified in the original ballot language. And unless renewed by voters, Measure E is scheduled to expire on September 30, 2028. At its regular meetings of November 5th and November 19th, 2025, as well as January 7th, 2026, the council discussed the potential renewal of Measure E and directed staff to proceed with the actions necessary to place a renewal measure before voters at the June 2nd, 2026 statewide primary election. The initiative was on the June 2nd, 2026 statewide primary election and required 2/3 yes vote in order to pass. Official results from Fresno County show 2,537 yes votes and 718 no votes. And with 77.94% of votes in favor, the measure successfully passed. As such, staff is recommending council take appropriate action to certify the election results and authorize agreements related to the implementation and examination of the transaction and use tax. So this evening, staff has three recommendations for three separate resolutions. The first is certifying the election results. That's resolution 2026-028 as provided by the County of Fresno Registrar of Voters. The second one is the recommendation that the city council adopt resolution 2026-029, authorizing the city manager to execute agreements with the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration for the implementation of a local transaction and use tax. And the final one is the recommendation to adopt resolution 2026-030, authorizing examinations of transactions and use tax records, which is essentially approvals that council must make so that certain staff members are able to review revenues received by the measure. So those are all current with the existing measure, but they need to be approved again for the new measure. It concludes my report, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Very good, thank you. Okay, is there any council discussion or questions on this item? Oh, okay, is there anyone that would like to provide public comment on this item? Seeing none, I'll bring it back for any last comments. I just would like to make one comment. Thank you for all your hard work. The associations did to get this measure passed. I think it's critical for, supporting the community, providing exceptional care that is provided by the police and fire department. So I really appreciate all the time and effort that was put in by everybody. Thank you. Okay, so the actions tonight are to adopt resolution 2026-028, certifying the election results and certification of final election results from the County of Fresno with voting counts.
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The second item is to adopt resolution 2026-029, authorizing the city manager to execute agreements with the California Department of Tax and B administration for implementation of a local transaction and use tax.
Motion.
Se-
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And the third item is to adopt resolution 2026-030, authorizing examinations of transaction and use tax records.
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to our next item on the agenda, it's the backyard chicken ordinance with presentation by City Manager Alexander Henderson.
Evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. Recently, Councilmember North approached staff and council regarding the possibility to bring an ordinance to allow backyard chickens within city limits. After direction from council, staff has reached out to neighboring cities for potential best practices and has drafted a proposed ordinance for consideration this evening. Currently, Farmersville, Madera, Lindsay, Exeter, Woodlake, Porterville, and Huron all allow backyard chickens. Some highlights of the proposed ordinance this evening include the allowance of up to 5 hens on a single family residential property within the city while prohibiting roosters except for properties zoned urban reserve or residential acreage. Chickens must be housed in a covered predator-resistant coop located in a fenced rear yard with a maximum coop size of 120 square feet and an attached enclosed outdoor run. Coops must meet applicable city codes and be properly ventilated and maintained. Chickens must be confined to the coop overnight and provide daytime access to the enclosed run. Feed must be stored in a rodent-proof container, and coops and surrounding areas must be kept clean and sanitary to prevent odors, pests, and other nuisance conditions. Coops and runs must generally be located at least 30 feet from neighboring residences unless adjacent property owners provide written consent or the properties are under common ownership. Chickens may only be kept for personal, non-commercial use, and the sale of eggs, breeding, or other commercial activities are prohibited. The ordinance also prohibits slaughtering chickens on residential properties except as directed by a governmental official. Violations would be subject to the city's existing municipal code enforcement provisions. As you may recall, in 2016, the council considered allowing backyard chickens within city limits, but ultimately decided to keep the existing prohibition in place. Over the years, staff has received periodic requests from residents seeking permission to keep backyard chickens. And staff is aware that some residents do currently keep chickens, with the majority of complaints received related to noise complaints stemming from roosters. Since the implementation of our online request management system, GovPilot for code enforcement tracking approximately 3 years ago, the city has reports of investigation of 7 cases related to backyard chickens. That concludes my report, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, I will open this up for council discussion or questions.
You have a quick question, Alex? Would you say about 7? I don't see that here. Is it here?
Yes, it is in some of the background information
Okay.
of the staff report. So residents are allowed to submit code enforcement cases, you know,
Right.
long grass, different things online. And so when this came up, we just went and searched to see how many cases of chicken complaints that we've received, because we have a current prohibition in place. And so just providing some information that we've investigated 7 as part of. in the
Yeah,
last
what
3
period of
years.
time was that? That was
The last 3 years.
3 years. Okay, that was my main question. Thank you.
I'll just give some background on when I brought this to council to put on the agenda. During COVID, when we shut down and we couldn't meet in person, there was a struggle for families to feed themselves when eggs and other things weren't easily accessible. During that time, I was the mayor, and it was brought to us virtually to consider that by multiple people. And at that time, we did tell the public that we would entertain the idea of bringing it back when we were back in person. And that was in 2020, and we hadn't done it yet. Since then, I think we've had 2 shortages of eggs where it was really difficult to get them, where previously in 2016, we hadn't seen that happen. So that is why I've had several people ask me about it since it was brought up when I was the sitting mayor. And so I thought, in keeping our word to bring it back up.
At this time, I'm going to go ahead and open up for public comment. Is there anyone here that would like to provide comment on this item?
I didn't even know this was an issue going on. John Smith again. I'm here about the backyard chicken ordinance. As far as losing, chickens, the last two mass deaths were caused by highly pathogenic avian influenza. Though it's happened quite a bit. I work out in the county and I see these big tankers, and a few years back, I didn't know what they were. They were CO2 in order to do a killing. So I see it quite a bit. I think most of this is, well, especially last 6 months to a year, has been because we had to do it because of the avian flu. Of course, they got crazy, $8, $9 a dozen or more. Go to Costco, you can't find them. So some of this may be overdone. I mean, it takes 4 to 6 months to get the egg supply back to where it is. I think we paid, what, $2.99 for 2 dozen? So it's not a real big issue right now. Food prices in generally are. Also, what else I'll say? 6 or 7 chickens is quite a bit. We had 6 or 7 chickens in Tulare. We were on an AE 20 that was subdivided. So we could have a cow if we wanted to. I don't know if anybody in town is on AE 20. You guys do that anymore? Okay, well, this is 50 years ago. And we had excess eggs. And so, we had 3 boys and we still couldn't eat, dozen eggs a day. So you will get people selling them. In fact, right across the street on Bethel, there's someone selling them. And about 7 houses down, there's a chicken coop. Around the corner next to the mailbox, something going on because the fence is falling down a little bit. Roosters running around a little bit. And so it's out there. We know it's out there. And on the other side of Bethel, there's coyotes. You hear them every night. So eventually they're going to learn the food sources in someone's backyard. And what are they? You can't slaughter them. So what are they going to do? This one chicken, you're old. And so they start letting them out. Once in a while, we'll actually get a red hen. When I first met Allie, the red hen was walking around the street and it fell off a chicken trunk. And I finally figured out what it was. Out in Clarkson, there's a brown egg farm. So once in a while, a chicken gets out of the cage. Kind of, people are putting down stuff for it. But I think if we get too many chickens, we also face the West Nile and the exotic Newcastle disease as well as carriers in someone's backyard. We're already fighting like the warrior outbreak as it is. We just don't need to add anything more to it. So basically, I know people look for food sources, but get on 1 or 2 gets real. It's overwhelming. Also, you can give them eggs away, or if you're not trying to sell them. So it's people just have to wait. Sometimes it takes time to get our food chain back into sync. And it's about 4 to 6 months. People are getting the big carts at Costco and putting them 6 high until Costco. I'm telling them, we got to put a two dozen limit on this for people. You don't need to hoard eggs. Last thing you need to do. And that's my thing. And I'm gonna let my wife speak.
Can I just ask you a quick question?
Yes.
So just so I understand, you're opposed, but is it an opposition to what exactly?
we got the
Living
disease.
in a town? I just wanted to clearly understand what was driving.
It's the
your
disease
opposition.
element as well.
Okay.
I took care of the dairies that had the avian influenza.
Okay.
Luckily, most of them, they didn't lose too many animals as well, but we were shut down there for a while. And of course, all the surrounding bird farms in Foster and Zaki or whatever, they had to slaughter everything.
Okay.
And it was getting owners there for a while. And I know that our mosquito abatement district does a pretty good job, but I don't think they can even keep up with those other 2,
Okay. Well,
vectors out there.
thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Smith, I had a question also.
Okay.
You mentioned the number. Are you opposed to the number also? Like, do
Yeah,
you
because
think that needs
it
to be
gets overwhelming.
revised?
It's like putting in 30 tomato plants in your garden. All of a sudden you get you
So
know,
what number do you think would be a good
1 or
number?
2 at the most. Most people just don't need that many.
Thank you.
7, that's 7, unless you have a 10 member family, you're giving stuff away to people. Because we had, like I said, 3 boys, a mom, dad. I think they went crazy too. They had like 8 or 9, you know, there was just too many. We ended up giving most of it away. And then once that generation left, you know, we just didn't do that anymore. But like I said, that was an rare AE 20. It got subdivided. I don't know how that ever happened, but that was 50 years ago. So, okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Sir, okay, please come on up.
My name is Ally, and I wanted to let you know of my opposition to the backyard chicken ordinance. I purchased my home in 2010, kind of based on the, reputation that Kingsburg has, a quiet bedroom community. And I'd like to think that our backyards, because we pay an awful lot of money for our homes, are a refuge from the outside world. Free from minimal noise and stench, hopefully. I can't imagine subjecting my neighbors to the increased noise, the clucking, and the smell, obviously. I do have concerns about who would go around and inspect these coops for sanitary reasons. My husband touched upon the disease that they do carry. I'd also like to add that in the mid-'80s, my father worked for USDA, and he was responsible for inspecting all the trucks that came into California carrying chickens for the Newcastle disease. I don't know if you remember that scare. I'd like to remind the council that in June of 2019, numerous residents of Kingsburg reported to the city about an odor coming from one house. Their reports largely went ignored by the city until it was discovered that this resident had numerous dead dogs and cats. So I questioned who would be doing these inspections. Are you gonna, hire more code inspectors? Like my husband touched upon, if one of these chickens gets the avian flu, how will they know? I don't think the average homeowner would know that their chicken is carrying disease. Let's see. I think if people want to purchase farm fresh eggs, they have the opportunity, like my husband said. There's somebody that's selling them directly across the street from where we live on Bethel. Well, I guess that's just about it. I think I would extend my neighbors the courtesy of not increasing noise and, smell, and I would hope that they would extend the same courtesy to us. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
I didn't have a prepared statement. I wasn't planning on speaking today. I wanted to thank Laura for bringing it back up. I was hoping that we would enact a change to our ordinance. I'm sorry, Leah Underwood. I'm a 25-year resident here in Kingsburg, and I'm in Dave's district. I'm glad to see it back on the agenda. I think that the information that I saw written in there is responsibly written. I think 5 is not an unreasonable number. I had expected something more like 6 from just the information I looked up on feeding a family, how many eggs they can lay during various parts of their life cycle. And I think just like with any animal ownership, you're going to have responsible and irresponsible owners. At least this gives an ordinance that people can follow and that's enforceable. Sorry, like I said, I wasn't prepared. I think you're going to have good owners and bad owners. And as long as people are responsible and taking care of their land, it's not going to be any more risk than any other animals they own. There's birds flying in and out of yards anyway, so avian flu is a thing, but I think at these numbers, it's very minor. And there's so many positive things. Teaching children how to care for the animals, families having an interactive activity outside of their screen time to get outside. Chickens eat bugs, they eat refuge. Your gardens, they can help clean your gardens. I think there's a lot of positive things. And I think it's, I hear a lot of chickens in my neighborhood as it is. And I'd rather hear a chicken than a dog barking, honestly. So, and with the eliminating the roosters, I think that there's not going to be any more noise than anything. You're not requiring people to own them, just offering them the opportunity to have something additional in their families. So, no, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Is there anybody else that would like to speak to this item? Okay. Yeah, okay, is there anyone on the phone? Should I do that? No, okay. Okay. Okay, thank you guys for coming and thank you for speaking up. You know, it's very, we appreciate the input from the community. So at this time, I'll bring it back to council. Is there any council discussion?
Yeah, I
Okay.
have a couple. Just for clarity, so Mr. Henderson, so the calls that you got on the chickens, the 7 calls in the last 3 years, those were mainly calls for noise violations or smell, or what were they for? Can you elaborate on that, please?
The majority of them were for roosters. I guess
Okay.
I was unaware, but I guess you just purchase chicks online or something. And so you don't know necessarily the sex of the chicken when you get it. And so then you find out when it gets a little older that it might be a rooster. And those are usually when we get calls. I think there was 1 or 2 that were related to smell. Yeah. So, and difficult to say though, because sometimes we often get complaints from neighbors that might have other disputes that are going on, and that becomes a part of it.
Okay, to expand on that, do you happen to know, this is getting probably drilling down on your memory, but do you happen to know if those were, say, properties that were in the county that were annexed that had like a grandfathered in type of scenario where they're chickens and roosters or whatever, where animals of husbandry were grandfathered into the city?
I don't believe so, but I could go back and find that out for you, but I don't know that off the top of my head.
That's okay. That's fine. I think the Smiths and Miss Underwood bring up great points on both sides of the resolution here or motion. And so I think that there's pros and cons, obviously. It's kind of interesting because this doesn't reflect ducks, and I know there's ducks in neighborhoods. I mean, we go walking, I hear ducks. They don't make a lot of noise. They don't make a lot of smell, but they do make eggs also. But that's not part of this ordinance. So, and I understand the dog barking can be more of an issue than a duck quacking or a chicken making noise. So I understand that as well. It's what I have right here. I have an email from an individual that is pro. He emailed me directly and said that he was in favor of the chickens. And then we obviously have some that are against it. So it's an interesting one. Open to hear my fellow council members' comments and see where this one goes.
Thank you.
I'm good. No comment.
No, just a couple of maybe more procedural questions than anything else. So someone decides that they're going to get their 5 hens. They get those 5 hens. There is no notification to the city. It's just an honor program, or do they have to come do anything with that?
Yeah, there's no permit process right now. I mean, essentially, this would be reactive enforcement if there was an issue that came up. So if there was a complaint from a neighbor or something, for the issues identified in the ordinance, then we would go out there, and then there would be probably evaluation at that point of that to make sure that they're following the ordinance. But there are different, when we did research, there are different, some communities do require a permit, which with a fee, which, and so there are different ways to attack it from that perspective. But the way that it's proposed now would be a reactive enforcement situation.
And this is all going to be done by code enforcement, or because what I'm anticipating happening is someone is going to go out, they are going to get their hens / roosters. And during that time, I mean, you don't know it's rooster till you hear it, right? Mm-hmm. During that time, the calls are going to go to the police officers. So they're going to go out. And what I'm wondering is, are they going to just be turning that over to code enforcement? Or is there going to be an expectation that those cops are going to be going into a backyard? I'm just, where I'm at with it is when they get those calls, if that isn't a completely fenced in backyard, how much legal authority does our code inspector have to then go inspect the backyard based on a potential sound complaint? I just wonder, without them coming getting a permit, signing a waiver of some sort that allows us to break the curtilage into a backyard, is that going to be a concern? Because if we send our staff in there, that makes me a little nervous.
Yeah, so we did discuss the item with the building official, and he brought that up, that there would be essentially, it's going to be complaint based, and that the ability to enforce some of the things will be dependent upon either access in the backyard or what's visible or noticeable from the public right of way, right? So if you can, and there are some subjective portions of the ordinance that he raised as well. If you have a complaint about smell,
There's no
it might be
gauge.
difficult if he goes out there and he's in the alleyway, for example, which is public right of way, and it doesn't happen to smell, that there's not going to be an enforcement mechanism necessarily from our end there. But yes, to answer the sort of the first part,
Yeah.
it would be funneled through code enforcement, not through the police department.
And that kind of brings me to my second concern, which is going to be there's ambiguity in the language, excessive noise. There's no decibel indication of that. So that's really, for someone like me that's hard of hearing, that's going to be a lot different than other people. So that's a very subjective term to use when you're talking about legal language. I know it's a pain to go through a decibel reading and things like that, but my concern is, again, we now have our staff going out and giving their opinion if it's excessive, or just some of the other stuff that we just have listed in here, that just is kind of that ambiguous language, such as excessive odors, excessive rodents. You know what I mean? That makes me a little nervous in the language when we're sending our staff out and saying enforce this law without a clear guideline. So I just want to express that concern.
Would you like to see a permit having to be pulled and like an agreement signed to go by these regulations?
Yeah, I think that what would make me feel a little bit more comfortable in it is, kind of a trade-off. If you want to have the hens, I would like them to have some sort of and I don't want it to cost anything, because I don't want it to be about making money. I want it to be free. But the two things that I would like to have in that is for them to waive the right to an inspection, and there has to be some sort of a form or mechanism for a random inspection. Because my concern is that these are going to get out of hand. And I agree with Mr. Smith, they're going to end up being sold. That's just a little concern that I have. I would like to get a little bit of a waiver in there for staff so that they know that they can inspect property, and we do have a list of who does and who does not. And even, be very gracious with it. A lot of people are going to get their hens and they're not going to know that they should pull a permit, and, have a warning system and stuff so that they don't have to destroy their hens. But they maybe have a 7-day grace period to come get the permit, at least get the house registered. I would like to see that language added.
I agree with you.
Would we be able to use the drone to look in? I mean, we can't, right? Or we want it at this point without more.
Yeah, the policy that we have for the drone right now is for particular building inspections. We don't use it for code enforcement.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, because, yes, the excessive noise, and how many complaints do we get about other animals, noise related? Do we get a number of them? I'm just curious.
Dogs.
Well, okay. But do we get a number? I mean,
Yes, I mean, we get a lot of animal complaints, and usually the challenge is that we get a complaint and they don't call the police department, right? So, there's not a whole lot. We get a complaint online or something like that, and then we tell them they have to call you have to call the police department, and then there has to be, it's kind of like a loud party, the police department can go out there and tell them that they have to, they can hear the dog, but there's not a, unless they're going to be a victim, it's It's just usually asking them to maintain their dog, unless
Mhm.
there's certain portions of the dog barking or the dog ordinance, but yes, that is much more complaints for dog barking.
Okay. It says that it has to be in the back of a fenced area. So I'm assuming, is that implying that you want it to be able to realize that you want, it wouldn't be seen? So it has to be somewhere that the neighbors aren't.
Yeah,
Um,
essentially, yeah, in
okay.
the backyard.
Okay. Very good. Nope. I agree with Brandon. I think it would be good to, and I recognize we have a lot of chickens now. We'll have a lot of chickens that won't be registered, but it does seem like it would be a good mechanism to have in place to have just for awareness and for the legal side of it. Okay. I'm gonna, they didn't, okay. If there is anyone virtually that would like to make a public comment on this item, you can do so by raising your hand. And if you are on the phone, press *9. So, okay. Is there any, did they? No. Okay. Any additional council discussion or thoughts or questions?
Now, are we considering adding the language prior to, or are you guys wanting to make motions as is without it? That's up to you. Up to you. I kind of stand with the slight language variation, but I don't know how much that changes. Would we have to come back with the language specifically?
Yeah, I think I would prefer to go and work with Mike and work on the language, but based upon direction this evening, and then come back to council with that so that you feel comfort in that as, and then you can vote on it at that time.
Okay,
My preference.
that works.
So would we table this for now pending some language changes and bring it back? Could we bring it back on consent? Or would we have to have a full hearing if it's a language change?
But you can continue this public hearing, direct staff to. Then, yeah, you could table, you could direct staff to make the revisions and bring it back.
Yeah.
I'll make that motion to table it with direction to staff to bring back with some language changes.
Second.
Are we voting? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Moving on to our next item, the crime statistics report for April through June 2026 and general police department update with a presentation by Police Chief Lieutenant Lee Forlines.
Motion at the same time. I like that. Thank you. Lee Forlines, I'm a lieutenant with Kingsburg PD. Madam Mayor, Council, thank you for having me here, Alex and staff. So let's go with we got it. Okay, yeah, that's a good one to start with. So this is basically a generalized overall breakdown over the last quarter. So part 1 crimes, we had 29 of those. I will just let you know that we are 18% down this year as opposed to last year at the same time in our part 1 crimes. I can go over a little bit more if you guys have questions for the other offenses. There was 98. Number of arrests during this period was 67. We had 16 traffic collisions. Traffic citations that were issued were 133. Specifically to truck violations on 18th were 12. And then we had online reports from citizens which come in through like GeoGov. We had 15 of those. We also continue to use Facebook or X and Instagram situations warrants to keep our citizens informed of what's going on to the best of our abilities. So I can go over the charts a little bit more. So the total number that you see with the 55 and the 67, that's 55 Part 1 crimes for this year, as opposed to the 67 the year prior to date. So that shows a significant change, the 18% drop still in those crimes. Moving on, our calls for service. So we had a total of 5,238 calls for service. Of those calls, 34% of those were officer initiated, and 66% of those were citizen initiated. And the reason for, usually the number is usually the other way around, but we've had a few officers that have been out due to injury. We've had a lot of trainings and stuff that have come up, so that's kind of skewed those numbers a little bit. Plus, usually in the summertime too, as it starts to get warmer, we start to get a lot more calls for service from the citizens versus self-initiated activity, which delays the officer from being able to go out to do some of the self-initiated stuff that we often see. So this next chart is the crime activity report. I know the numbers might be a little bit confusing, but where you see like the 100%, for instance, that's just going to be a May increase to June increase. That's why you see 100%. So we had one stolen car, for instance, in May versus June, we had two. So therefore you have a 100% increase in that crime. But overall, year to date, we've had 55 total incidents on the crime activity for that report. So that's a cumulative of all of those. So the next one is a breakdown of just our crime activity reports. So we did track those all the way from January until now. So to give you again, where you can see the 55 with the Part 1 crimes. The other offenses, which would include things like vandalism, simple assault, there is some child abuse, sex offenses, narcotics violations. So again, total for the year was 191 that we've been involved in and actively investigating. Probably something to note, we did have a stabbing that we're currently on right now. That's kind of our most recent one. If you want to get into violence, we know who those people are. We have to serve search warrants related to those, and those are so ongoing cases. So we're definitely on top of it. It's not something we don't know what's going on or who's related to these things. And it's nothing that the public, I would say, has to be concerned about. So this was an isolated incident for sure. So other statistics that I would probably mention worth noting, everybody likes to know what our motorcycle officers out there doing. So we have the total hours that he's been on the bike. So that's Officer Fuentes. He's been on the bike for a total of 692 hours during this period. He has given 28 truck citations himself. So out there just doing what he can, as much as he can. Total traffic citations have been 272. With that being said, we're on kind of citations. I know the bike issues are kind of a big deal. So with the e-bikes, and just to kind of let you know, we did do an e-bike enforcement specifically in the downtown area. We did that between 1,000 hours and 1,600 hours. We had Officer Jimenez and Moon out there doing that. They did 5 traffic stops. 1 citation was issued. It was not for the bike. The purpose of that specific enforcement was for education. So during those contacts, they would talk about bicycle safety, give out pamphlets, kind of let them, know of the dangers of these bikes, the capabilities of what can happen when you don't obey traffic laws and things like that, and also the nuisance that it can pose to other business owners and citizens as they're out strolling about, doing their daily activities and conducting business downtown. So, and we are sending 2 of our officers to an actual bike safety traffic enforcement school that's coming up, so then that they can bring that information back, educate more officers and the public. So to how to better deal with some of these e-bikes and keep our kids of our community a lot safer. So with that being said, I'll move on to our police department quarterly report, which was going to take place between April 1st and June 30th. So training and professional development, the department personnel completed training and leadership management. So I was privy to actually go to that. So I finished management school. So as a requirement by post. So up in the Bay Area was basically almost 4 months long. So you would go for a duration of 3 to 4 days. I think the longest session that I went to was a week. We do have a sergeant that was recently promoted that is going to be attending the management school coming up, I believe in October. So he'll be going to a similar, but for sergeant rank. We've had officer wellness training. We're firm believers in that. We do believe that there's some things that you just can't see that because of the things that we deal with on a regular basis. Officer wellness is definitely something that needs to be integrated. It doesn't just deal with, you know, the right eating and exercise. It also deals with your mental health and how to bring that home to the family. So to keep the longevity of our officers, we do care about them. So, and our chief has been well behind us, and so have you guys, and we appreciate that. We got new firearms. We've had drone operations that have been ongoing. So we do have 2 drones. So we appreciate, you know, the Public Safety Committee for kind of passing that to get that out there. I know my counterpart Joey behind me has been helping out instrumentally with that. So we can get those drones up and start using those on the streets to help us out. They are an invaluable tool for law enforcement. So with new technology coming out. Evidence management, post compliance. So we've been focusing on that. The entire department has also completed training on the newly issued duty firearms, which we just received a few months ago. We got rid of the old firearm because of some of the negative light that was shed on what could happen with that gun. Incidentally, that the gun could possibly go off. So we decided to change that and be proactive on that so we wouldn't have to be put in a risk like that. We got a grant approval, which we're very proud of, for the ABC Alcohol Policing and Partnership Grant. We received that on June 3rd. We currently have 2 officers down actually attending training to see how that grant has to be operated, funded, and utilized. Our community outreach. So our personnel participated in several community events. So our KPOA did the car show, the Sweetest Festival. They were constantly going out knocking on doors with Measure E, cookies with cops downtown at the Bella Bakery. So it was an outstanding turnout. We had the Peace Officer Memorial Bike Run that came through town. So that's an annual event that comes through town. We're always glad to see them. And then we had the Special Olympics Torch Run. The school resource officers participated in a safety day, a You Matter Day, the graduations, senior night, and the surf camp event. And I will just throw in, they just went, took the little ones up to the baseball game. Unfortunately, if you all are Giants fans, they didn't do too well that day. So, department improvements, we've had new electronics door accesses that we had, so to be post compliant. And make sure that, you know, there's secure doors in all aspects of the department. They were installed throughout the police department to improve security and maintain state compliance. Staffing, Sergeant Gonzalez just recently announced her resignation to accept state investigator position. Officer Underwood recently resigned to join the California Highway Patrol. As far as I know, he's still in that academy, so it's a very tough academy. And once you've been through one academy and you got to go through it again, that's nothing fun, especially as we start to get older. So Reserve, we just hired Ben Fan. Most of you know him, so he's instrumental in the community. He's also a business owner. I can tell you there is nobody with more heart, dedication, determination, and willingness to want to be here and serve this community than Ben. So he is a fantastic individual. Really enjoy working with him, and he's going to do great things for the city. We also have Cadet Sebastian Gomez. He's going to be graduating this Friday. So if you guys aren't doing anything, you want to come out, we can get you that information of where the graduation is going to be there. So if you guys want to come out and see that. So he was hired while he was in the academy. So we were sponsoring him partway through. We have 1 person currently in backgrounds. We anticipate that person will probably be one of our next new hires. And we are also going to be doing an oral board for 1 more position that's coming up on the 28th of this month. So we're in the process of setting up that oral panel right now. So the equipment department has ordered new patrol vehicles from the 25-26 budget. So we have one that's coming in. It is a little bit different than our other vehicles that we currently operate. So we had hybrids. We did notice that we had some problems with the hybrids. As they would get a little bit older, they had some battery issues. So we went with a little bit different model, which doesn't use the hybrid type motor. Inside there, it gets about the same gas mileage, and the longevity of the vehicle and resale of the vehicle for later in the future actually is much higher. So that's one reason we went through that. The new duty firearms, again, I hate to be redundant. And we got some new flashlights out there for everybody. So we're not using kind of the old school technology. They've got the rechargeable batteries, super bright. I'll just kind of reiterate on the patrol and investigations activity again during this quarter. Our patrol officers handled 2,756 calls for service. 426 case numbers were issued from those contacts. Officers issued, again, 133 citations. Detectives received 10 follow-up investigations. And detectives also completed 74 reports and made 5 arrests out of those investigations. I think that about sums it up. Do you guys have any questions or concerns that I can address? I'm happy to do it for you.
Just out of curiosity, it's great that the Part 1 crimes are going down compared to last year. Any thought on why?
Why the Part 1 crimes are going down?
Yeah, I mean, I know it's not a big number, but I mean, it really is. It is nice to see that.
I will tell you, in
trend.
the state of California, so with the plethora of things that have happened, whether you agree or disagree, and the crime that goes on in some other cities, we're very fortunate to live in a place that we live and serve. We have an amazing community that not only backs us, but is right there with us and stays on the phone. They're very vigilant. They're very detailed with the information that they give. They give a good and plenty of this town, just like we give a good and plenty right back by making sure that we keep crime down. So we're very adamant about telling officers to go out and continue enforcement, even if that means getting out of your car, talking to people downtown, just make contacts. We want to know who our people are, who we're serving, but we also want them to know us. We don't want them to have, maybe some of these other things in other cities where people are fearful of us. We're human beings. We have a heart. We care. We want to help out, and we want to give back to this community just as much as our community needs us to be here to protect them. So we don't shy off, when the wolf comes knocking, but at the same time, we're there to do, some of the little things that we don't look beyond. So I always say, from barking dogs to homicide, we're there to do it all. And we accept that with open arms, and we treat every call the same. So with the same level of service all the time.
You guys are doing a great job.
We appreciate
you.
that. Honored to serve for sure.
Thank you. Just real quick, is there anybody from the public that would like to comment on this item? Ask any questions? Okay, very good. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on, under future agenda items, we have none. So is there any one that has one they want to mention? Okay, I will move on to the city manager's report.
Just a brief update regarding the 2026 street projects. So Rayford Johnson Drive was repaved last week, and then initial work has started on Tulare Street between 10th and 14th, as well as 14th Avenue north of Stroud, and those streets will be paved next week, and then that project will continue through August. But it's on time and going well so far. That's all I have.
Very good, thank you. Okay, council reports. We'll start with Councilmember North.
Good evening. SKF did not meet this month. It was a dark month for them. They will meet on August 13th, and Councilmember Palomar will fill in for me on that day. It's the first day of school. And Chamber met last night. We had 3 board resignations at the Chamber meeting, and they are sending a letter to the Chamber members to open that up since it's not a normal voting period. calling for those that might want to be part of that. One of them is because Lauren Nickel, the director, she ended up getting a position at, I believe it's the Fresno Art Council up in Fresno. And so tomorrow is her last day and she will be emceeing the band concert. That will be her last official duty. And one of the board members, Michelle Andrade, is going to be the new director. So I think she's set up for success. We've seen a ton of progress with the chamber over the last 6 months. So I'm excited to see the next phase of that. They did share metrics from Visit Fresno County. They did a presentation last night. There are copies of the report back here, and I believe you each got one. Some noted numbers that they shared was the increase in the amount of visitors that we had in the Swedish Festival and the car show. So last year, 2025, Swedish Festival, we had just under 23,000 visitors. This year, they were able to determined that we had just over 26,000. They really could drill down into the data to see how many people came for more than one day, if that was multiple days, where they visited, areas they visited, restaurants they visited, retail businesses. It was really good information. They also could see where they came from. One of the things that they did share with us is they didn't see a lot of people coming from the Fresno area. So one of their recommendations is next year when we're advertising for the Swedish Festival to really target some of the other areas. We saw a lot of surrounding small towns and Visalia and south of Visalia come. One of the things that they had pointed out was that in our hotels in Kingsburg, we had 48 rooms that were booked that were specifically for people who visited the Swedish Festival. So that's another target area, maybe a block of rooms or a discount. And also the car show, there were 25 people that booked hotel rooms. So that's good for our economy here too. Car show last year, the numbers were 17,697. This year it was 19,519. So a significant increase. And they tracked the same thing of retail, restaurants, all of those things. McDonald's was really high on one of them. So got to kind of fix that. But it was very interesting. And then they also shared how they could partner and help in the future, whether that's chamber, bid, or the city. It was a lot of very useful information. Centerpoint, I believe, is also meeting on August 13th. Is that correct? Okay, it's a workshop. I don't know if we have a location yet. And that's all I have to report.
Very good. Thank you. Councilmember Silva.
Thank you, Mayor Smith. Not much to report since the 4th of July holiday. I will say that the South Kings GSA, I do have an ad hoc meeting on the 29th. That's not really a public meeting, but I just wanted to, remind council that several weeks back, we created an ad hoc committee to work with our water supplier. So we have a meeting to discuss how we're going to go forward with them. Just to get you guys in the loop there. Kingsburg Healthcare District did not meet since it was a holiday month. I do have just a community notification. Some of you may know, but this one's a little bit closer to me since my son's wife is related to Jensen Hirschkorn, who just went to the Major League, just accepted a contract with Major League Baseball, the Atlanta Braves. And so a local Kingsburg baseball player is going to the big leagues, which is, I think, an amazing thing. And what's that? Yeah, straight out of high school. Yeah, he had the opportunity to go to LSU. LSU wanted him, but he had options, and so that's all that we can hope for our kids and our young individuals that are turning into great humans. And options are good, and so that concludes my report.
Thank you. Councilmember Palomar.
Thank you. Public safety, we have not met since our last meeting. Planning Commission, we did not meet in July. Community Service Commission, same thing, because of the 4th, we did not meet. I didn't go to the fireworks, but I watched the fireworks. I didn't go down to the high school, but I did watch the fireworks, and it was a really good show this year. I think that was a great thing for, this being the 250th year of our nation. On that note, if you bear with me, I have a quick story about the bicentennial. So this 250, the bicentennial year, 50 years ago, I was lucky enough to where I want to publicly thank my parents for driving me to New York and back on the bicentennial year, 1976. I was 10 years old. We left Kingsburg in late May. My dad took, with like $1,000 back then, it's all you needed. And in a 1969 Barracuda, pulling a 20-foot trailer, I think it was about 20 foot. Anyway, pulling a little trailer, camping trailer. Our first stop was Arkansas. Visit my mom's family. Canton, Ohio, Pro Football Hall of Fame. Then we went to Pennsylvania, Independence Hall, did all that. Then my dad said, you know what, let's just keep going. So after Independence Hall in Philadelphia, we went to DC, we went to Virginia, saw all the things in Virginia, this Arlington Cemetery, changing of the guard, kept on going. I turned 11 years old in New Jersey. My birthday's in early May. We left in late April. So I turned 11 years old in New Jersey. The next day we went to Statue of Liberty, went up into the Crown. Anyways, it was just an amazing trip, the bicentennial year. And I didn't even mention to Washington, D.C. Took a White House tour. We've been into all the monuments, Jefferson, Lincoln, Washington Monument. Anyways, it was a trip of a lifetime. And I just wanted to thank my parents for doing that. My mom and my dad. I went through like 20 states before I was 12 years old, and it was a trip of a lifetime, and it made me have a great love of America. It's probably one of the reasons why I'm sitting up here today, just loving America and, wanting to serve the community. So thanks, Mom and Dad, for that year, the bicentennial year, 50 years ago. Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Purcell.
Just two things. I did go down to the Independence Festival. It was a great turnout. Talking to the Hofers that ran that, they said they had in excess of 2,000 people that showed up down there. So that was a great thing. I think money well spent on our end. Other than that, yesterday, the Fresno County Board of Supervisors met specifically regarding the roads initiative. I believe it's called Better Roads, Safer Roads, something like that. It's a citizen initiative that is going to be basically the continuance of Measure C. They did collect enough signatures, although the first batch of signatures that they submitted had a pretty significant failure rate. So they had to hand count it, which put them on a timeline. Then it has to go to the Board of Supervisors for approval to get put on the ballot. The Board of Supervisors at that point has the option of just putting it on the ballot, or they can then conduct an impact study to determine the financial impact of that. They chose to conduct the financial impact study, which they have up to 30 days to do. If that study does take 30 days, which is very likely, it will go beyond the allotted time to put it on the ballot. So I would say as of today, it's a very, very small chance that measure of any kind goes onto the ballot. So it looks like we won't have that citizens initiative on the ballot, and it would look like it would go in March of 28. So as far as COG goes and transportation goes, that's going to be a pretty significant pivot on where we go from here. But that's my updates.
Great. Thank you. Okay, the Finance Committee that hasn't met, we meet on August 24th. Bid did meet yesterday, the other day, recently. And that was great. The fire department came out and gave a presentation because they're going around to the businesses. They're redoing that, and just to give everybody an idea. But one of the things that I know I found so useful was they had this little knockbox thing that you could have, that businesses could have on their business so that the fire department could get in there and get a key. But at the same time, so it's good to let the businesses know. at the same time, a comment was made that, you know, you can let them know if you have a code to get in your house and they need to get in, to let them know, and they can have that information if it's ever needed. So I found that useful, and I just wanted to kind of pass that along. And on that board, I will mention there are 2 board positions. We had one new business move out of the bid district, so she's no longer on the board, but there are 2 openings there. So we'll be seeing some advertising for those positions as well. So that brings us to the end of our meeting, and I'd like to thank you all for joining us online and in person. And I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will adjourn this meeting. Thank you.